Hello, welcome to the Intramural Soccer Officials training video for Saginaw Valley State University. My name is Brady Duke and I'm the coordinator of intramural sports programs at Saginaw Valley. This video was created to build a more effective set of officials for our intramural program. We send this video to all our prospective employees as stage one of the training process. Candidates are further tested on the content of this video, both on paper and in practice. Before we begin, I want to note that all rules not covered in this video are governed by myself and the Director of Campus Recreation in conjunction with the soccer rules books of the NFHS and the NCAA. The rules are implemented into the program for the enjoyment of the sports amongst our student body and may be altered at any time to ensure this. There will be 4 parts to this video. The first will cover some pregame routines and guidelines we have for our program. In the second part, we will cover proper placement for officials on the field. Proper signaling and whistle techniques will be covered in part 3 of the video, while a proper captain's meeting will be demonstrated in part 4. Before we begin, please feel free to reference the rules document and the training PowerPoint me or your current coordinator have provided you via email. First and foremost, intramural soccer is played in 2 areas on campus. During the fall season, the games are played outdoors on the intramural fields, while during the winter seasons, the games are played in here in the field house. In many ways, setup for the field is the same in both indoors and outdoors. But let me go over a couple of things that we do. For outdoors, your nets will already be near or on the field. You'll only have to shift them to the goal line. For indoors, the goals are always stored back in the storage room, which you'll see if and when you're hired. The nets every night get moved onto the playing field and back into the storage room. The other things we use for this to line the field are the red corner flags. All 4 corners of the field are marked with these red corner flags, both outdoors and indoors. Finally, we use these soft yellow cones to mark the goalie boxes, both indoor and outdoor. In some cases, you'll have a scoreboard to set up as well. The scoreboard will come with a remote control that you will use while out on the field of play. While we're at it, let's talk about scoring for a minute. Though our leagues are open, meaning there is no gender requirement for teams, we do give an advantage for females when it comes to scoring. All goals scored by a female are worth 2 points, while goals scored by men count as 1. We do this as an initiative to keep our sports diverse and as inclusive as possible. Staying with the scoring theme, let's move our attention to the score sheet. This is the official document for every intramural game that is played, and an accurate account of the game must be kept. When checking in players, make sure to write their jersey number down. Both officials will oversee the tracking of goals scored for each player and documenting any yellow or red cards that are given. A tally should also be kept for each half of scoring by both teams and a total number written down for the final score. Don't worry about everything else on the score sheet right now. That will come in later training. The last thing I want to mention here is our substitution rule in our program. We allow substitution to take place at any time as long as it occurs away from the play. Meaning, if the ball is moving away from a player, he or she may walk off the field and be replaced. Officials must note that wherever a player goes off the field is where the player coming into the field must enter. What I mean by that is that a player cannot exit on one side of the field and their replacement enter on the other side of the field. In part 2, we're going to cover the proper placement of officials on the field. For all intramural soccer games, we'll have 2 officials on each field. Indoors, the field runs from the goal line on this side to the 30-yard line. So there's 30 yards wide that we have to cover as officials. I'm going to be standing here on the 5-yard line, and my partner Tyler in the back is standing on the 25. So we're both about 5 yards inside from the side of the field. Now, as you can see, we have the players on this side of the field towards me with the goal on the baseline here for the goalie box. Now, As the ball moves up the field, Tyler's going to be shifting down the field and taking the goalie side on that end, and I'll end up at midfield. Then as the ball comes back down, I will be taking the goal line while Tyler ends up back at midfield where he's standing now. So we'll show you this now. All right. Now you'll notice a couple things that happen in that scene. One is that neither me nor Tyler ever took our heads off the ball. We always want to make sure that we're always watching the play at hand. The second thing is we never want to put ourselves in harm's way. The best way to do that is to stay as close to the outside as the field as possible. Never want to get too inside of the play, which puts you in harm's way to get run over or be hit by the ball. The third thing is you always want to make sure you have the best view of the play as possible. It really does take some practice to get those angles correct and make sure that you're in a good spot to make a call. But we'll show you this more with on-the-field training in the future, and we'll have our veteran officials really show you the best practices for that. Now I will demonstrate the proper signals we use in our intramural soccer program. There's really 7 different signals that we use, and I'll go through all of them. I'm not going to use the whistle techniques for this video. I'm just going to show you my signals with my hands and my body, so you guys can start practicing those, and the whistle techniques will come later on. Alright, so to begin the game, the way you begin the game, you would blow your whistle and you would wind your arm like that just to signify that the game has started and the clock has started. Now, for intramural soccer, as I've mentioned previously, we're going to be using hopefully the remote controls to the scoreboards, so you'll actually be pressing the button to start the clock, as well as starting the play clock with your arm. Next is a direct kick. Anytime a direct kick happens, you're putting your left arm or your right arm, depending on what side you're going to, and it's straight out to the side just to signal who the penalty's on, and to that side of the field that the ball is going to be kicked to. So left side for a direct kick to the left, or to the right side for a direct kick to the right. The next is on a penalty kick. On the penalty kick, you're actually pointing directly towards the penalty circle where the shot will be taking place. So instead of just out to the side, you're pointing directly at the penalty spot where we'll be taking the kick, just to signify that it is a penalty kick. So penalty kick to the left, penalty kick to the right. The next one is a card. You will have cards for intramurals. For cards, you definitely want to talk to the player and let them know what they did, but you're also coming up to the player themselves and you're holding up a card to signal that you've given them a yellow card or a red card. So you'll have both of those in your pocket as an official, and both officials will have that. When that happens, you need to make sure that you write that down. That is something that we document and keep track of in our intramural program on the score sheet. So you'll be doing that as well. Hopefully your partner, while you're administering the card, hopefully your partner is over at the score sheet helping you write that down and track that information. The next thing that we have is a corner kick. A corner kick is an arm in the air over to the corner, proper corner that we're going to be kicking from. So, here, if you're going to the opposite corner on the left side, it's there. Right corner over on the front side is there, and then on my back side here, I'm going to be pointing to that corner. So it's a kind of a raised arm up in the air, pointing to the corner that we're going to be kicking from. When there's a goal scored, you are putting your hands up in the air, crossed like this in front of you to signal that a goal went through. If you were on the goal side that the goal was scored, it should be the other official who is going to the score sheet and marking that down. So you're coming up, goal score, you're blowing your whistle to stop the clock. and you're signifying to all the players and your other official that there was a good goal scored. Finally, the last signal is a play on, where there's actually no whistle involved, and it's just a kind of hands straight out, and you're talking to the players. So, you know, if two players are going back and forth, pushing each other, giving them little arm shrugs, you know, you just want to say, hey, play on, come on, guys. And that is the signal that you're giving for that. That's not always used, but it's just good to get into a good habit of using it, so that, you know, if you do move on into further levels, you're already used to using that signal. And it looks good, it looks more professional, and it shows you that shows other participants that you know what you're doing and know what you're talking about. One thing I want to say about foul calls is that it's to your discretion whether a foul it warrants a yellow card or a red card. In our program, a red card not only removes a player from that game, but actually suspends them from participating in intramurals until they meet with me, the coordinator. I don't say that to scare you or to give you any fear from showing and giving out a red card. I just say that so you have better judgment when interpreting the intent of a penalty, because if you can tell that it was obvious that someone was trying to hurt another player, then a red card needs to be called. But you know, if it seems to be bad, maybe they hurt the person, but it doesn't necessarily, was there any intent there? You know, really think about, do we want to suspend this person from intramurals, or just give them a stern warning and a yellow card, and just document that this thing happened, and if it happens again, that they will get suspended. It's essential you mentally prepare yourself before every game to possibly have to kick someone out. Although you don't want this to happen due to unsportsmanlike behavior, but you always want to make sure that when you show up for your shift, you're prepared for something like this to happen. The same goes for injuries and concussions that could happen during your shift. You just want to always make sure that you're come prepared for anything to happen during your shift, and hope that nothing actually does.
Now that you have learned the procedures, rules, proper placement of officials, and the signals we use in our program at Saginaw Valley State, I will show you the process of a soccer captain's meeting and pregame routine. Before the game, teams will warm up. It is the official's responsibility to make sure teams get checked in and the game starts on time. It is also your responsibility to study who is playing who. Before the captain's meeting, consider the following questions. Does one team have a significant skill advantage over the other? How good is the level of play between the two teams? Have there been sportsmanship issues with these teams in the past? Does a team commit a specific violation often? Depending on your answer to these questions, you may change your captain's meeting speech for every game you officiate. For example, if I know these two teams have had bad sportsmanship or have questioned my judgment in the past, I would say something about having good sportsmanship during the captain's meeting. If I know a team has a player that has slide tackled in the past, or they play aggressive and like to push, I will mention that I will be watching for that during play. Let me give you two examples for acceptable captain's meeting in the soccer program of intramurals.
Captains. Hey guys. Before we start, you guys know it's 2 15-minute halves, no timeouts, no slide tackling, no offsides, so don't worry about being offsides or anything, cherry pick. Before we do rock, paper, scissors, last time we got a game between you guys, so let's try to keep that under control. Any questions, you can recommend me, and then let's try the fun game. Rock, paper, scissors, what?
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Okay, do you want ball or do you want defender first? Okay, you want ball, we're going that way, you guys are going defending, going that way, okay? Alright, let's have a fun game.
Good luck.
Captains! You guys doing today? Good. Before we start, it's 2 15-minute halves, no timeouts, no offsides, no slide tackling. Really remember that, no slide tackling. Before we start, you guys have any questions? Okay, rock, paper, scissors to see who gets ball.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Okay. It's 2 for 2. Do you want ball first or you want to defend? You want to defend, so you're defending this side, going that way. You guys are defending, or with the ball, going that way. Okay?
Good luck.
Notice how I addressed the most important issue in both games at the very beginning. This is a small thing, but it's what turns a good official into a great official. Addressing what you believe may be the biggest issue before the game even starts acts like a warning to both teams. That way, when you give your first yellow or red card or respond to unsportsmanlike behavior, it is justified because you have already addressed the fact that you would be signaling those acts out specifically throughout the game. So to recap, we have spoken about general procedures, rules, signals and whistles, and also a proper captain's meeting. As this video comes to an end, I encourage you to pull out your whistle and practice your signals. Practice administering a captain's meeting. Everything in this video gives you the tools to become a good official in the intramural program at Saginaw Valley State. But just like playing the sport, officiating takes practice too. Thanks everyone for watching.